Okay, so this video is from section 17.3. 17.3 is about solving equations which have absolute value. So let's write a note, let's review. This is the definition of absolute value. So we have absolute value of x equal a is going to be a number or expression, is called absolute value. Equation. Okay, and to solve it, you always, this is important, you always have to solve two equations, just remember that. Two linear equations, okay? The first one will be x, just remove absolute value, equal to a, or the second equation will be x equal opposite of what you see, which is negative a, okay? X equal negative a. So here, the first equation is just the original equation without absolute value. So original equation without absolute value. And the second one, here you see negative 8, which is opposite of the number slash expression, because sometimes it can be expression from original equation. So just remember, when you're solving absolute value equations, okay, absolute value of x equal a, you're always going to solve two equations, okay. So let me give you the better definition, because this is just how to solve the equation. Let me just give you the definition of absolute value. So absolute value of a number is it distance from 0 to the number, from the 0 on a number line. So absolute value represents this distance, and that's going to make sense if I will show you the example. We all know that the absolute value of -4, it has to be positive. So all the time when you see absolute value, the solution has to be positive because the distance, it's never negative. So look what happened. You have a number line, right? Let's put 0 here. And here you see absolute value of -4. So -4 is right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, -4. So absolute value represents the distance from 0 to the number which you have inside of the absolute value. So this distance, it's definitely 4. So we're not counting negative, positive, but the distance from 0 to -4, it's 4. So again, distance equal 4. That's why the solution is 4. Okay. And of course, absolute value of positive number, it's the same number, because if you follow the definition of absolute value, which represents the distance from 0 to the number which we have right here inside of absolute value, so 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 4. So the distance from 0 to 4, it's 4. So here also the distance equal 4. So absolute value of negative number is positive, absolute value of positive number is positive, but the whole idea that you guys understand that absolute value represents the distance from 0. Okay, so there is no negatives. Okay, let's solve examples. Solving absolute value equations. And let me just write a very important note, because we will use that. Absolute value of any number or expression, I'll put expression, is always positive. Okay, very important. So here in this example, I will show you 3 simple examples of solving equations to absolute value. So the first one, okay, it's going to be absolute value of x equal -7. Okay, so that's the first type. Something like this has no solution. This equation has no solution. Why it's no solution? Because I just put it the note for you guys that absolute value of any number or expression, in this case expression because x eventually represents a number, it's always positive. On the right side you have negative numbers, so we cannot solve something like that. This is not true. No solution. Okay, it is impossible to solve since absolute value is always positive. So be careful with that, because sometimes students are trying to solve it with those type of the equation. They're trying to trick you. Okay, you're just not solving them, you're just saying that there's no solution. So that's one type of the equation. Second type of equations, you may see something like this: absolute value of x minus 4 equal 10. So how you solve those type of the equation? Let me write the steps. First, what you need to do, you need to isolate absolute value. So you need to isolate the absolute value. What that means, before you start solving 2 equations, you need to move that -4 to the right side. Okay, so we're going to add 4 to both sides because that will cancel, and now we have the absolute value of x equal 10 plus 4, which is 14. Now when you have only absolute value on the left side, you're ready to apply step 2. So second, it's going to be solve 2 equations. Now we're ready to solve 2 equations. So the first equation will be just copy the equation without absolute value, which is x equal 14. And the second equation will be x equal, and take the opposite of 14, which is -14. So we end up with 2 solutions. We have 2 solutions, and when you have 2 solutions, we're writing them that way. The solution set is And in the parenthesis, we listing negative 14, 14. Okay. So this equation is true only when x is equal to negative 14 or positive 14. So you're going to see many equations like this. So before you start solving two equations, make sure that you isolate the expression with absolute value. So that means only absolute value should be on the left side, everything else you moving to the right side. And you have equation which look like this. Absolute value of x equals 0. So if you want to break it down into two equations, you will say, okay, x equals 0 or x equal negative 0. To be honest, there's nothing such like negative 0. So 0 and negative 0 represents the same things. Represent the same number. So the solution set is just 0. Don't put negative 0. So when you have absolute value equals 0, it's enough that you will only solve one equation. So let me first write now. Just solve. Only here, when you have a 0 on the right side, just solve one equation. Because negative 0 is the same as 0. So just remove the absolute value. Okay, so let's practice. Of course, the three examples which you guys just saw, I gave you very basic examples. Let's practice more advanced problems. Before we do that, let me just write down all the steps. Steps to solve. So I gave you the examples. Let me just write this down. Step to solve absolute value equations. Okay, first we need to isolate the absolute value. So again, move, that means move everything except absolute value, of course. Move everything else, but not absolute value, to the other side. Okay, second step. Second will be if. Step of solving absolute value equation. I will be referring to this. Sorry, guys. Absolute value of x equal a. Okay. So second, if a is negative. What that means, if the number which you have on the right side, it's negative, like we have in this example, like negative 7. Okay. Okay, so the equation won't have solution. Solution. So you may stop. I will put must stop. Okay. And I will give you example. Absolute value, different example of x minus 5 equal -7. Okay, because of that -7, there is no solution. You cannot have a negative number on the right side. Okay? The third step, otherwise. So I'm talking about the number which is on the right side, it's 0 or greater than 0. Solve two equations. X equal A or X equal opposite, -8. Okay, A it's original number. This is the opposite to the original number. So again, before you start solving two equations, super important that you will isolate that absolute value. Okay, and step 4, which usually I'm skipping that, but you guys, especially at the beginning, you want to always check your work. So check your answer. Okay, so let's practice. Solve absolute value equations. Okay, so the first one which I have, it's absolute value of 2x minus 5 plus 6 equal to. Okay, so step number 1, first what we need to do, we need to isolate the absolute value. What that means, that positive 6 has to be moved to the right side. Since it's positive 6, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So now I just copy absolute value, which is absolute value of 2x minus 5 equal 2 minus 6, which will give us -4. And now look what happened. Okay, pay attention. We're going to stop, okay, because we end up with negative number. So no solution because absolute value is never negative. Okay, so we don't have solution. Okay, this equation does not have a solution. Let's do different second example. We have absolute value of 3x minus 7 equals 6. So here we definitely can solve it because we have positive number. Absolute value is isolated, so step number 1, we don't need to worry about it. So now we're just solving two equations. So solve two equations. So I'm going to skip step number 1, okay, which is isolate the absolute value, since I already have absolute value only on the left side, and I'm going to solve two equations. I'm moving to step 3. So first equation, just remove absolute value, so that will be 3x minus 7 equals 6. And the second equation which you're going to solve, okay, copy the expression from absolute value, which is 3x minus 7. So you never change that, okay? We never change that. Equal, and the opposite of 6 is -6. So we're solving two equations, you have two solutions. So we're adding 7 to both sides. We end up with 3x equal 13. And just divide each by 3. And we end up with x equal 13 over 3. That's first solution. And the second solution, we're doing the same thing. We're going to add 7 to both sides. and we end up with 3x, it's equal negative 6 plus 7, which is 1, divide each by 3, and we're having x equal 1 over 3. So we have two solutions, and we're going to write the answer that way. The solution set is, and just list the solutions. 1 over third, 13 over 3. So the equation with absolute value makes sense only for those two values, 1/3 and 13 over 3. Okay, next one. Let's practice more. So I have 3 times, this is a little different, absolute value of 3 over 2a plus 1, and outside of absolute value have plus 2 equal 14. So first, again, don't forget about here we have to apply first step. Isolate the absolute value. So the idea is here that we only keep this expression on the left side. Everything else has to be moved to the other side. So first, to isolate the absolute value, let's move that positive 2 to the right side. Since you have positive 2, so we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So we have 3 times absolute value of 3 over 2a plus 1. It's equal 14 minus 2, which is 12. Now, what we need to do, again, we're trying to isolate the absolute value. So we have 3 times absolute value. So to undo multiplication, we need to divide both sides by 3. So next, what we need to do, we need to divide both sides by 3. So you solve that the same way, like if you have 3 times x equal 12. Okay, so we need to isolate that expression. So we divide both sides by 3. This one cancel, and finally we only have absolute value on the left side, which is 3 over 2a plus 1 equal 12 divided by 3, we have 4. Now when we isolate the absolute value, I'm ready to solve this equation, and we can definitely solve it since 4 is positive. So next, solve two equations. Okay, the first equation, just remove the absolute value and copy everything else. 3 over 2a plus 1 equal 4. And the second equation, we copy the expression from absolute value. So that part never change, okay? Equal, and opposite of 4, it's negative 4. So don't forget that you need to solve two equations. So to solve it, again, you have equation with fraction. So the denominator it's 2. So your LCM here it's 2. I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 2. So I have 2 times the left side, which is 3 over 2a plus 1 equal 2 times the right side, which is 4. So now I'm just going to distribute. So we have 2 times 3 over 2a plus 2 times 1 equal 2 times 4, which is 8. 2 cancels, so we end up with 3a plus 2 equal 8. Now we're just going to subtract 2 from both sides, and we're having 3a, it's equal 6. Divide each by 3, and we have a, it's equal 2. So that's the first solution. Okay, Here, I'm going to solve the second equation, so the same idea. The denominator of the fraction is 2, so LCM is equal to, I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 2. So 2 times, in parentheses, I'm capping 3 over 2a plus 1 equal 2 times the right side, which is negative 4. Now I'm going to distribute 2 to both. So I have 2 times 3 over 2a plus 2 times 1, it's equal negative 8. 2 cancel, we end up with 3a plus 2 equal negative 8. Subtract 2 from both sides, and we having 3a is equal negative 10, and just divide each by 3. A equal negative 10 over 3. I just want to mention quickly that your final solution, your variable, can be negative answer. When I'm talking about that the absolute value cannot be negative, so I'm talking about this part, when you have absolute value, the expression inside of the absolute value, and you always have to pay attention that this number on the right side is positive to be able to solve it. So the solution set is, and I'm going to list my solutions, negative 10 over 3, 2. So we have two answers. Next, I'm going to show you how to solve absolute value equations when you have absolute values on both sides. You actually solving them very similar. So that will be next. This is still section 17.3. Next, again, this is different, a little different. We're going to talk about solving equations containing two absolute values. Okay, so we're going to solve something like this. You have absolute value of one expression equal to absolute value of the second expression. So how you solve that? That implies that, and you're solving still two equations, x equal y or x equal opposite of what you see here, which will be negative y. Okay, so technically, to make it easy, you remove the absolute value from the first expression. So like you see x, and here you see x. And the first equation, it's like before, it's always looks like your original equation without absolute value. The second equation, you make the opposite of the expression which you see on the right side. Okay, so here, just remember, only second equation, this one right here, opposite of the expression on the right side. Okay, so let me just show you how to solve it. Let's just do examples. I don't know which example is that. Here we had example 4, I guess. Okay, so solve the equations with two absolute values. So all the time you see absolute values, that means two equations. Of course, if we can solve them. Okay, so let me label them A. So we have absolute value of 3 minus 2x equal absolute value of 3x minus 1. Okay, so I follow the definition. That implies So the first equation, it's going to be just remove the absolute value. So the first equation which you're going to solve, it's 3 minus 2x equal 3x minus 1. Or the second equation, this is what we're going to do. I copy what I see inside the first absolute value, which is 3 minus 2x equal. And on the right side, here you have to have the opposite of what you see inside on the right side. So opposite means negative. And in parentheses, you're going to copy what you see inside of the second absolute value, 3x minus 1. So this is the difference, okay? The first equation you're just solving like you don't see absolute value. The second equation, you always put minus inside of the expression of the second absolute value. The rest is just solving. So we're solving the first one. We want to combine like terms so that 3x, I want to move to the left side. Since it's positive, subtract 3x from both sides. So we have 3 minus 5x equal negative 1. Then I will move positive 3 to the right side since it's positive. So I will subtract 3 from both sides. And we having negative 5x is equal negative 4. And just divide each by negative 5. And we got x equal 4 over 5. So that's the first solution. Okay. Now I'm going to solve the second equation. So before I start moving things around, I need to distribute. Negative means multiplying by negative 1. So if you see minus in front of the parenthesis, that means you have negative 1 over there. So we have negative 1 times 3x, which will give you negative 3x. Negative 1 times negative 1, that will give you positive 1. So now I want to move negative 3x to the left side. Since it's negative 3x, I'm going to add 3x to both sides, which is the opposite. So now, on the right side, we only have 1. On the left side, we have 3 minus 2x plus 3x, which will give you 3 plus x equal 1. And the last step, positive 3 has to be moved to the right side. Since it's positive, you're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So we have x equal negative 2. So we have two solutions of this equation. So let's put that together. The solution set is, and I'm listing, usually when I'm listing, I don't think order matters in Alex, but I like to put the smaller number first. So it's negative 2 comma 4 over 5. And you can always check, you can substitute and see that this equation only, it's true, and we can solve it for those two solutions, for those two numbers, which is negative 2 and 4 over 5. Okay. Okay, two more and we'll be done. Let's do B. So we have negative absolute value of 3 minus 6y equal absolute value of 8 minus 2y. Okay, so something like this, you guys have to pay attention, especially in absolute value equations. They really want you to, they're trying to trick you. So you can always switch the sides if you want it. So I'm going to switch the sides so we can see it. We have absolute value of 8 minus 2y. It's equal negative times absolute value of 3 minus 6y. Okay. So look what happened. We know the absolute value is always positive. Look what happened on the right side. We know that this expression is always positive, but then when you see negative, that means you multiply that by -1. So whatever it's something what it's always positive, multiply by -1, answer the expression on the right side, it's negative. It doesn't matter right now what x will be. Again, expression of absolute value is positive. Positive answer multiplied by that negative number will give us negative. So absolute value is always positive. Since the right side it's negative, since the right side is negative, there is no solution. So don't even waste time on an equation like this. When you see in front of one of absolute value minus, which is -1, that means no solution. Don't waste time on it. Okay, definitely you will see something like that on a test and you just need to select no solution. We don't solve that. No solution on Alex. I explained that before. You can have that empty set if that will be multiple choice, or sometimes they just put the empty brackets. Okay, so no solution. You can, both notations are correct. So here we didn't have to solve it. And example C, that is our last example. Absolute value of 6p plus 3 over 8 equal absolute value of 3 over 4p minus 2. Okay, so here definitely I can solve these equations because I have absolute value equal to absolute value and I don't have negative in front of any of the absolute value. So we're going to solve two equations. The first equation is going to be 6p plus 3 over 8 equal 3 over 4p minus 2. So I just copy everything without absolute value. Or in the second equation, I copy the expression from the first absolute value. So I copy that 6p plus 3 over 8 equal, and you put a negative here, and in parenthesis, not absolute value, but just regular parenthesis, you will copy what you have on the right side, which is 3 over 4p minus 2. Let's solve first one first, and then we'll focus on the second one. So look what happened. Here you guys have fractions. So you already know how to find the equations with fractions. Step number 1 will be find least common multiple, lowest common multiple of 8 and 4. So we know that LCM, it's 8. So find the number which can divide 8 and 4. So that will be 8. So we're going to multiply both sides by 8. Okay, so I have 8 times, in parentheses, I'm putting the left side of the equation, which is 6p plus 3 over 8 equal LCM, which is 8 times, and in parentheses, I'm putting 3 over 4p minus 2. Okay, next what I'm going to do, I'm going to distribute 8. So number multiplied by fraction, you only multiply numerator. So that will give you 8 times 6p plus 3. You will need to multiply both by 8 over 8 equal, and here I distribute. Number multiplied by fraction, you only multiply numerator. And that will give you 8 times -2, which is -16. Now, before you start distributing, like you guys can see that definitely you can cancel that a. So we have just 6p plus 3 equal 8 divided by 4, which will give you 2. 2 times 3 will give you 6p minus 16. And 6p will be moved to the left side. So I'm going to subtract 6p from both sides. And look what happened. That cancel, that cancel. You end up with 3 equal negative 16. Okay, so this is contradiction. We talk about it. So there is no solution here. Okay, you end up with a false statement. So we don't have a solution from the first equation. However, you cannot assume that this one also does not have a solution. No, it's not correct. So what I'm going to do, before I multiply both sides by 8, which is also LCM, okay, because we know that LCM it's 8. Also, you're going to have the same LCM in the second equation. I'm going to distribute that minus first. So I have 6p plus 3 over 8 equal negative 3 over 4p plus 2. So negative 1 multiplied by expression, just change the original expression to opposite. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by LCM, which is 8. So I have 8 times 6p plus 3 over 8 equal 8 times, and in parentheses I copy the right side, negative 3 over 4p plus 2. Here you guys already know what happened from previous, that 8 and 8 cancel. So you end up only with 6p plus 3 equal, here I'm going to distribute 8 to both. So we have 8 times negative 3 over 4p plus 8 times 2, which is 16. So we have 6p plus 3 equal 8 divided by 4 will give you 2. 2 times negative 3, we end up with negative 6p plus 16. And now you're going to combine like terms so that negative 6p has to be moved to the left side. Since you see negative 6p, add 6p to both sides. Opposite. So that cancel. And we end up with 12p plus 3 is equal to 16. Now, positive 3, we need to move it to the left side of the equation since it's positive 3. So when you're switching the sides, you always adding or subtracting opposites. So in this case, I'm subtracting 3. So we end up with 12p, it's equal 13, divide each by 12, and that will give us p equal 13 over 12. So we only have one solution, okay? Since from the first equation we end up no solution, so here the solution set is 13 over 12. What that means? That this absolute value equation, which we had it right here, will only work when p is equal to 13 over 12. Okay? So that's it from section 17.3. I show you how to solve absolute value equations. Hopefully that will help you with homework. And I'm going to upload the notes and the video for you guys for watching and studying. Okay, thank you.